Chers auditeurs,
Dear listeners,
bonjour.
welcome in Comme d'Archi Podcast Season 4
Saison 4, dans le monde fascinant des architectes.
and in the architectural projects.
Je suis Anne-Charlotte Deponte, passionnée d'architecture et docteur des universités en histoire de l'archi.
I am one of the spokespersons of Anne-Charlotte, who is a PhD in architecture history.
Merci
Thank you
d'être avec moi aujourd'hui.
to be with us today.
Et
And
maintenant,
now,
lundi en français, place au talent.
and Wednesday, let's talk projects. In English, of course.
Bienvenue dans Comme d'Archi.
Hello everyone, welcome to Spot Season 4, Episode 66 in English. This is Esther on behalf of Anne-Charlotte. I'm talking to you today about Norman Foster and the Starchitect. From May 10 to August 7, 2023, the Centre Beaubourg is dedicating an exhibition to the world figure, emblematic major of architecture, Sir Norman Foster, PRITZKER Prize. This is an opportunity for us to question the notion of the Starchitect, a species that seems rather endangered at the beginning of the 21st century and attached to the figure of the 20th century architect. And yet. But let's start by talking about this exhibition that opens the very week we launched this part of Comme d'Archi, an exhibition that, of an ephemeral nature, closes its door in the summer of 2023. To leave its mark? Norman Foster has signed a multitude of famous works in the world. Among them are the Millau Viaduct, the Carré d'Art in Nîmes, the headquarters of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, and the renovations of the British Museum in London and the Reichstag in Berlin. The Parisian exhibition reveals in a space of 2,200 square meters different periods of the work of the star architect and the major achievements, including those mentioned above. And this through some 400 drawings, including his first, elaborated when he was only 15 years old, photographs, models, prototypes, and workbooks. In total, 100 projects are presented in a gallery of the museum. The scenography is concocted by Sir Norman Foster himself, who confides, "I like to say that this exhibition is a futurospective rather than a retrospective, because we are talking about sustainability." Also, Frédéric Miguero, curator of this exhibition, encouraged me to look at my 60 years of architectural practice, end of quote. The star turns 87 on June 1st, 2023. His firm, Foster & Partners, has a staff of about 1,500 people and nearly 20 offices around the world. For the uninitiated, you should know that the headquarters are in London. It is a behemoth of architecture like Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, interviewed in January. What is the future for these giant agencies? Maryse Quinton, in her June 2021 article for The Good Life magazine, tells us that you have to go back in history to understand the rise of the Starchitect. In 1985, Norman Foster reinvented the skyscraper with the HSBC headquarters in Hong Kong, a 44-story building that marked a turning point in his career and opened the doors to success. His agency became an international brand. The commission could not have been clearer: to build the most beautiful bank in the world. A symbol of the high-tech architecture that was very much in vogue at the time, but which was being built in Hong Kong for the first time, this building propelled him to the top. The most expensive tower in the world was the headline in newspapers and magazines. Certainly, the Anglo-Saxon recipe is the brand or the marker. In addition, the image of the agency founder, refined, became a legend, a plebiscite by the great museums of the world. If at 85 he refuses to provide his portrait to the press, we can see him from every angle on Instagram, in a suit at work, in shorts on vacation, wearing his cross-country skis during the many races in which he participates, fishing, or reading in his pool on giant unicorn buoy. Maryse Quinton explains. Is this false modesty, or an innate sense of business, or both? And us flabbergasted, as if we absolutely need to be inspired by one soul while 1,500 pros are slaving away. But that's the way it has been in architecture for 120 years. All for one, but also one for all or almost all. Young ideologists have of course created collectives. At one of them, when I was in charge of their communication, I was told, "Your uncle Paul de Pont was the first collective of architects." It was about Lodz de Pont-Beauclair in this evocation. However, I doubt it. One never invented anything. Baudouin and Lodz even before, were they not and already the embryonic form? And then, before 68, one spoke about the famous workshops. In any case, this compliment was nice to hear from another collective of ambitious architects and not lacking in character, AS, Architecture Studio. You know, the one who designed the European Parliament in Strasbourg? We often see its hemicycle on TV with its famous bright blue seats. AS, Architecture Studio, who co-designed the Institut du Monde Arabe too, with Jean Nouvel. That we never remember. But the latter, we move on to Jean Nouvel, has worked so well on his image. He recently told us that he considered architecture to be dead. The one he lived through, of course. And yet, everything is to be built tirelessly. What should he have done better than the present generations? Men full of talent like him are to be found in every generation. It is true that the end of the 20th century saw the flowering of the star-architect, oh la la! And since Frank Gehry and the Guggenheim in Bilbao, so many mayors on a European scale have wanted their own iconic building. The icon and the star. We swore by it. Some people took advantage of it. How long did we chase it? Well, in the case of Bilbao, it gave a boost to a declining city. Certainly the idea was brilliant. The problem is the sheep that copies, that sets up as a model and uses it, and in the end destroys the model. What if the best recipe of our time was alchemy and its power made possible by AI? Coming back to our star architect, some architects feel better solo even if the team is there. Others realize their potential collectively. What must be preserved is our freedom of choice. It is immense here in France today, even if it is difficult to realize this. Perhaps we will meet at the Norman Foster exhibition. Why not try to better understand this architect who was more into doing than thinking? And as for the continuation, we can only hope to draw the best inspirations from a father, Pierre, who knew how to transmit, which by the force of things renews itself. If yesterday the carbon footprint of Foster and Partners did not seem exemplary, today the projects are in mutation worldwide. Enjoy your visit, and let's never forget that everything already exists. See you next week for a new issue of Comme d'Archi, and take care. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. Thanks to Julien Rebourg, sound engineer, who is collaborating with us today. Don't forget to tune in to our previews on Instagram at Comme d'Archi Podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, don't hesitate to promote it by giving it 5 stars and a little comment on Apple Podcast or on your favorite podcast platform. And above all, subscribe to listen to all of our episodes for free. See you soon, and until then, take care of yourself.